might have done this once before, but I feel it's been a while. I might as well revisit the idea. Today I'm going to be talking about the DC Extended Universe versus the Arrowverse. And both of these have characters in them based on characters from DC Comics, and I feel it's time to analyse which ones worked best. Who who did the better version of the character in each version of uh, their films or their TV shows. Now, there are two that I am not going to be making judgments on yet, purely because I actually have yet to see the recent James Gunn's Suicide Squad. I mean, there is one character from it that is introduced in there that I am going to be judging, purely because I think he did a better version, but anyway, this is going to be comparing each character who has appeared in both the DC Extended Universe and the Arrowverse and deciding which ones are better. To start off with, we've got Superman, Clark Kent, the good man, the front boy of DC. So who have you got? Well, you've got Henry Cavill or Tyler Hoechlin, and in this case, I'll go to give the point to Henry Cavill. Now, purely because a lot of these are going to come down to how much time we've actually had with the character. Now, I'll admit, I haven't yet seen Superman and Lois. It looks like a very good show, I just haven't seen it yet. But for most of his time on Supergirl, when they introduced him, they kind of put him in the back seat, purely because they want us to focus, the audience to focus on his cousin, Kara Danvers, played of course by Melissa Benoist. And yeah, so you don't want to bring in Superman too much when you want to focus on Supergirl. So I think for the time being, at least, until I can see Superman and Lois and get a better feel for it, the point I think is going to go to Henry Cavill, as he's the better Superman. That doesn't mean, though, that I'm going to throw it all away, because Amy Adams versus Elizabeth Tulloch, in terms of who did the better Lois Lane, I'm going to give the point to Tulloch, I'm afraid. Because, okay, Amy Adams does a great job as Lois Lane. She does a good version of the character, but I always feel with her as if she loves Clark Kent, she loves Superman, but I also feel with her she's still slightly afraid of him. Like, she knows the power he wields, and she is holding back a little bit. Whereas with Tulloch, I genuinely believe with her and Tyler Hoechlin that they've been together a long time, and she knows that he could save her, but she also knows how to handle herself. So I think that makes her a little bit more interesting a character. So while she hasn't had as much screen time maybe as Adams, I'm going to give the better Lois Lane point to Elizabeth Tulloch. General Zod, you got Michael Shannon versus Mark Gibbon. Now this is one that's purely going to come down to timing, because I gotta give the point here to Michael Shannon, purely because we haven't actually seen that much Mark Gibbon as General Zod, as he only appeared in the last episode of Supergirl's second season, where he isn't actually really there. He's basically a silver kryptonite vision that Tyler Hoechlin's Superman ends up seeing, causing him to fight Supergirl. And that's the only time we really get to see Mark Gibbon as General Zod. So, given that purely Michael Shannon had more screen time, had a whole movie of us getting to know him, I gotta give the point to Shannon. Now, whether Mark Gibbon shows up again in Superman and Lois, I don't know, I haven't seen the series yet, but for the time being, the point goes to him and the DCEU. Warren Christie and Ben Affleck, who did the better Bruce Wayne? Can't really judge them on their Batman, because Warren Christie hasn't played Batman yet, but once again, I gotta give the point to Ben Affleck, purely because we've had a lot more time to get used to him, and with Warren Christie, we haven't actually seen him play Batman yet. Or we've seen him playing Bruce Wayne, playing Tommy Elliott, playing Bruce Wayne. So yeah, I mean, until we actually see him play properly Bruce Wayne, or play his version of Batman, which may not happen for a while, I'm going to give the point to Ben Affleck and the DCEU. It's not going to be entirely this way, though. Now, two that I'm going to lump in together, purely because very little screen time for both of them, are their versions of Jimmy Olsen and KBeast. Now, in the DCEU, these two characters are played by Michael Cassidy and Callan Mulvey. In the Arrowverse, they're played by Mercad Brooks and David Nichol. And I'm going to give the point here to the Arrowverse, purely because these characters only appear very briefly in the DCEU. I believe they only appear in Dawn of Justice. But in the Arrowverse, we've had more time to get used to these characters, several seasons of both Supergirl and Arrow to get to know James Olsen and KBeast, so the point goes to them. Sorry to lump those two in together, but that's just what I think. Okay. Lex Luthor, Jesse Eisenberg, or John Cryer. People are going to have their opinions on which ones are better for all of these, but for me, I think John Cryer does the better Lex Luthor. I mean, it is common knowledge at this point that Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor in Dawn of Justice was a little bit hectic, a little bit weird. Some say thought he was playing a different character, but John Cryer, he manages to do menacing so very well. I was hesitant when it was announced that they were going to introduce Lex Luthor into the Supergirl TV show, but he just brings it, and he brings it well. So, a point to the Arrowverse for the better Lex Luthor. Amanda Waller, Viola Davis versus Cynthia Ade Robinson. Both good versions of the character, but for me the point is going to go to Davis. Purely because Robinson did great. She did her version of Amanda Waller. She did it well, and for the brief time that she was in the Arrowverse, I think she was a good version of the character, but I think if you showed both versions of the character to someone who knew comics, and they would say, which of these is Amanda Waller, they would probably point to Davis. I mean, Cynthia Ade Robinson did great, but I think if you saw Viola Davis marching down the corridor towards you, you'd be scared. You're like, oh god, Amanda Waller's coming to get me. So, I'd say that Davis did a better Amanda Waller. For Deadshot, you got Will Smith versus Michael Rowe. And from what I've read of Deadshot in the comics, I'm going to give the point here to Will Smith. Now, purely because, from what I've read of Deadshot, he's supposed to be this deadly assassin, a master marksman and the like, but he's also supposed to be a family man, someone who cares deeply about his daughter and wants to give her the world. Now, with Rowe, I saw the marksman stuff. I saw him being a deadly assassin, but I didn't necessarily see him as that much of the kind of loving father. I know there's a few clips that do show it, but I only really saw the assassin with him. With Will Smith, I saw both sides, and that's why I think I would ultimately give the points to the DCEU. Now, Captain Boomerang, we've got Jai Courtney versus Nick Tarabay, and while I know at this point, sorry, spoilers ahead, that he does end up, being killed off in the Suicide Squad, sorry, spoilers, I'm going to give the point to Jai Courtney as well, purely because of timing. We didn't actually get to see that much of Nick Tarabay being Captain Boomerang. He only reappeared in an early crossover between Arrow and The Flash, and then briefly at the end of Arrow's 5th season. So we didn't actually see that much of him. Whereas Jai Courtney, we got an entire movie with him and part of a second film, and while I'm sad that he has gone from the DCEU, I do think he did a better performance there. Now, Harley Quinn is a difficult one to judge because we got Margot Robbie up against Alexa Cassidy with Tara Strong doing the voice, and I'm sorry, it's a little bit preemptive but I gotta give it to Robbie. I mean, the fact that we only saw the back of Alexa Cassidy's head and heard the voice of Tara Strong, I gotta give it more to Robbie because she did provide more of a character. I mean, Tara Strong is one of the greatest voice actors of our time, and I admire her completely, but yeah, the point has to go to Robbie, as she properly brought Harley Quinn to the screen and made her lovable. Lovable and crazy all at once. Ezra Miller versus Grant Gustin. Who did the better Flash? Once again, in terms of how much time we spent with the characters, I gotta give it to Gustin. I mean, we've had, by this point, 7 years of him being in the role, and by this point, he is the Flash. I mean, I know he's done other roles in the years before and the years since, but I think Grant Gustin is the Flash. Ezra Miller, haven't actually got to see that much of him. Only 2 versions of the same film, really, and until the Flash movie comes out in a year's time or so, we can't really judge him entirely yet. So, for the time being, Grant Gustin is the better Flash. Now, Ryan Choi, this one is difficult to judge because on one side we've got only really one thing with Crisis on Infinite Earths, and the other, the extended cut of Justice League. We've got Zhang Kai versus Ozuric Chow. And once again, purely because of how much time we were able to spend with each version of this character, I gotta give it more to Ozuric Chow. We got to spend a few episodes with him, whereas with Kai we only really got to spend a few minutes. So I think for the time being, Ozuric Chow was the better Ryan Choi. For the better Huntress, this is difficult. We got Mary Elizabeth Winstead up against Jessica DeGao. Both did their mark on the character, both of them brought their own thing, but I think this is one that's going to go to the DCEU. Purely because we didn't actually get to see that much of Jessica DeGao's Huntress. I mean, she's there for the first 3 seasons of Arrow, and then she just disappears. I keep wanting them to bring her back, but it doesn't look like they've got any plans to do anything more with her in the future. Whereas Elizabeth Winstead, while she's not in Birds of Prey all that much, she does provide a great character, and a good role for it. Who did the better Black Canary? Journey Smollett-Bell or Katie Cassidy? Once again, I think this is just one to do with time, purely because we've only had one film with Journey Smollett-Bell so far, and while she's at the same time as Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I do feel we got to know Katie Cassidy a lot more, Katie Cassidy's Laura Lance a lot more, and we really got to like her. So when she was killed off in Arrow's 4th season, it was a real shock. And so, yeah, I'd probably say the Arrowverse did the better Black Canary. Who did the better Black Mask? Now, this is one I can't really judge because I haven't actually seen that much of Batwoman Season 2 yet. Because I know they brought him in Batwoman Season 2, played by Peter Outerbridge, but because I haven't seen that much of it so far, I gotta give the point to Ewan McGregor. Purely because, well, that's more I've seen. I mean, maybe if I see Batwoman Season 2, I might reverse it later down the line, but yeah. Now, as I said, I haven't yet seen The Suicide Squad, so I can't really make judgings on these next 3, but purely because of how much time I've seen of him in the trailers so far, and how much time he actually got in Supergirl, where he is only a minor villain, in terms of who did the better Bloodsport, Idris Elba or David St. Louis, for the time being it's going to be Idris Elba, purely because I've seen him in bits and pieces from the film and from the trailers, and I do see much more of a character with him than I did with David St. Louis, but then again, that's just me. I can't really make a judgment yet on who did the better Thinker, Peter Capaldi or Neil Sandilands, purely because, as I say, I haven't seen the Suicide Squad yet, and we had an entire season with Neil Sandilands as the villain, the Thinker on The Flash, so I can't really judge that too much yet. And in terms of who was the better King Shark, Sylvester Stallone or David Hayter, once again, I'll have to really see the film before I can really make a judgment on that. But the last 2 that I felt I should probably mention is who did the better Katana, Karen Fukuhara or Rila Fukushima. That one I think is about even, about level. I really can't say too much. I mean, I think possibly a little more Fukuhara, but then Fukushima definitely had some good points, so can't really judge too much on that. And in terms of who did the better Martian Manhunter, well, we haven't actually got to see that much of Harry Lennox's Martian Manhunter yet, so I can't really make a judgment on that. So for the time being, David Harewood is the better John Jones. So it all tots up to around about 10 points for the DC Extended Universe and 8 for the Arrowverse. And considering this is just my opinion, it's fairly level. So will they introduce more characters into the DCEU that have already appeared in the Arrowverse, or introduce more characters into our Arrowverse who have appeared in the DCEU? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's my small comparison that I just wanted to do for the time being. Till next time, see ya.